The Lions are 3 games in. How are they doing? Seems like a good time to discuss what these Lions have achieved so far, identify some areas where they've been challenged and see where they might be headed. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to the Lions series. And I've got Taff with me again today for his Lions debut. Congratulations, Taff. How does it feel?
Oh, it's good. It's a real honour, Tim, to put on the Lions podcasting, amateur rugby podcast shirt for the first time. So thank you. It's an honour.
You're very welcome and very deserving. Now then, let's get into the meat of this stuff. And on this day, it seems like we can't start with anything else other than the fact that Owen Farrell has been called up to this Lions squad in place of the injured Elliot Daly, who sadly has to go home. What do you make of it all?
Well, first of all, I thought, Daly had played very, very well. He's one of those players that I've felt for years is kind of solid. And sometimes you think that that's not enough. And then you realize, thank God he's so solid. And in the end, you go, Jesus, he's wonderful. He's solid. And I think, for any coach, seeing how many times he gets selected for the Lions shows you something that he has the respect of the coaching staff, the players around him. So, and he'd obviously look very good because he can adapt to any kind of game plan. He's smart, he's intelligent. I saw them talking yesterday about, as an assists king as well. I can sort of understand what they mean by that. He makes things happen around him. And so losing him, I think, is a big blow because you can always rely on him to deliver in whatever he's been asked to do. But obviously Owen Farrell coming in, I'm really pleased for him on a personal level because I'm sure, he's had a difficult year at wrestling. It's not been great. So for him to feel like he can be back on the biggest stage, I'm sure means a lot to him. For the Lions squad themselves, they know they're getting a winner. They're getting the mentality that isn't going to come in and be kind of overruled by the situation. They're not getting, someone who's super excited just to be there. They're getting someone who's coming along to win a test series. And I think for that side, that part of the mentality of the group, that's also a very, very positive thing.
Absolutely. And I've committed all my thoughts to a video earlier today, which I'll link just above Taff's head over there for people who want to go and see my thoughts on Owen Farrell's call up to this Lions squad. But overall, I agree. Obviously, nobody wants to see Daly get injured, but I think Farrell will bring a lot to this squad. Okay, the rugby played so far, 3 games in, like I said in the intro. What are you seeing from these Lions at the moment? What are your sort of general feelings about the way they're playing?
I think there's a couple of things for me, Tim. I think the first thing is there's a really good sense of energy about the group in terms of wanting to play. I mean, everyone who's coming on the pitch wants to make something happen. I think that's obviously, you're going to be a bit like that because you want to impress. But also, I feel like they want to make something happen within the game plan as well. So I'm really impressed with their commitment to trying to make the system work or making the shape work. There's been a lot of chat about the shape. I think it's been very interesting to see the way that they've attacked, the way in which they're bringing the runners off 9 a little bit wider. They've scored a couple of tries like that already. But I think all in all, they've got to be very pleased. I mean, I think there's probably questions about the quality of the opposition and how battle-hardened they'll be over the next few weeks. We'll come to that maybe later. But I think you've got to say after Argentina, which was always going to be a tough game against a great team like that, I think they've got to be pleased with the appetite, energy, and commitment to the shape that everyone's shown. And yes, there's going to be a few handling areas. There's going to be people running a little bit, a little bit too early, a little bit too late, but they all want to do it. And I think Farrell will be really happy with that level of mentality and discipline to the shape and the way they want to play.
I agree. They've brought a lot of energy to that as well, isn't it? It's good to see that they're clearly committed to the game plan that's been put in front of them, which is excellent. And just to follow on from what you said there, I think when they're out of shape, when the game's got loose and it's been playing on instinct, they've looked absolutely superb. And of course, you only really play in shape so that you can get out of shape and exploit space. So as the tour goes on, I think their shape play will only increase and get better and better. And then they'll get more opportunities in loose play where they've looked absolutely rapid. They've just torn teams to shreds at times.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's positive, and maybe that's just because the quality of position, is you can notice their ability on the turnover to use their physicality to break through tackles and keep the ball alive. a couple of tries already where they've gone, like, and obviously Thomas Williams is one, but other sort of attacks as well where they've turned the ball over and they've gone meters with the ball, 50, 60 meters, because they've got a physicality, but also an appetite for running at weak shoulders, getting the ball out of contact, and so on. And so, yeah, you're right. I think the ability to both play with a shape, but then have energy and aggressive attacking mindset when they win turnovers or when it's a little bit loose is also really, really positive. And I think Farrell's got to be happy about that. Everyone's up for it. And even if, there's a dodgy kick or they have to kick and chase, and you saw that with Hansen the other day, the appetite then to get up and make something happen for the team. Farrell was very clear that was the piece of play that he called out afterwards. And I think, again, those are the sort of moments that they will put up on the wall or in the training room, etc., and go, this is what we need.
Yeah, because the technical, the tactical, they can all do that. It's the effort. And it seems like such a strange thing to say about professionals at the top of their game, playing in the biggest series of their lives. But sometimes you still need reminding and just prompting. Like, that is what we're all after. The effort is what is going to make the difference, probably, at the end of the day.
Yeah. There'll probably be, a moment now to reflect on some of the set piece stuff. Kickoffs obviously have been a bit of a mess at times. Lineout's been okay. Scrum's been okay. A few penalties yesterday, second half, where I think they, the front row got themselves into a bit of a, they weren't quite as disciplined as perhaps Farrell would have wanted them to be. So there's probably going to be some conversations about that. But all in all, I think, it's a good foundation to build from.
Yeah, completely. Now then, in terms of the playing style itself and its suitability to winning a test match series, I had Elko on the pod yesterday, and he was maybe questioning it a little bit. He said, is this the Lions barbarians rather than, Lions going into a test series? And it's been a little bit exaggerating there in that statement. But the point's fair that the Lions are moving the ball around a lot. Do you think, they've obviously identified that as their best route to victory against this Wallabies squad. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think this is a really good question, because one argument here is, or one strategy would be, this is how you gain confidence in the team and in each other to beat these teams. But come test match, do you bring it 5 yards shorter? Either, do you play a bit tighter? I remember against New Zealand, the series, and New Zealand had played, were kind of famously play the ball around. Against the Lions, they just basically hit it up hard, 3 or 4 yards either side of the ruck, and just physically dominated that area, and then could go wide when they needed to. And I was wondering whether maybe using players like Conan, using players like Morgan, Ben Earl, Bundyaki, they will be a lot closer in to physically dominate the Aussies. So I think the Aussies will want people to play it wide because they like playing wide. They want the ball to go wide and run, and drift and make the hits, etc. And I wonder whether it's going to be a bait and switch, whether actually when it comes to it in the test series, they will look to physically dominate through maul, line out, scrum, through running hard yards, 10 yards either side of the ruck. Maybe that second, that flatter forward ball, from the 9, things like that. But really in that kind of space, and then not go wide too early. And I wonder whether that'll be something that we'll start to see a little bit more of, because I think going wide off first, second, third phase in that middle part of the pitch, the Aussies might feel quite comfortable with that, and then they'll be going over the ball, and they'll be able to feel like, oh, let's play. The moment this game becomes unstructured, we can do quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in terms of developing sort of a wider framework, it's almost easier to start wide and then bring it tighter. Whereas if you're in a game and it's really tight and you've never experienced what it's like to play wide and you need to, then it's a lot more difficult. So I think it's quite a decent idea to start off very expansive and then bring it tighter rather than having to do it the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you've got 10 minutes to go and you're like, we need to start playing, getting it wide now, but we have no confidence in it. We don't really know what to do. And I don't think it's about not going wide, even in the first 20 minutes of a game. I think it's just physically dominating over the gain line to the point where, you know, the space starts coming alive a little bit easier out wide. And so, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it, you know, everything gets a little bit tougher, a little bit shorter, a little bit more physically, you know, around the ruck, a little bit more for the test series. But anyway, I think the encouraging thing is, you know, and this is, if you're talking about the Lions as a brand, the fact that they want to play rugby is good for these warm-up games. You know, it's good that they're doing this. It makes the games, you know, it makes the brand of the Lions much more compelling.
Yeah, 100%. And it makes me happy as well. So that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that Andy Farrell seems to be getting questioned a lot about by the press is the centre combinations that he's selected so far. I think a lot of people in the press think he should just stick with the Scottish pairing and the Irish pairing and just let them almost be selected as a pair throughout the tour. But he's not done that so far. He's absolutely mixed and matched. And I've got my ideas about why he's done that. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, because, and I saw, you know, Agara was saying it yesterday. He said sort of similar thing on the commentary. He, you know, his view is that Bunyeki can't really play as a 13. He's a 12, and therefore that's going to make you need to pick, you know, the Irish centre ringers or whoever there. Tuipulotu and Aki together. Yeah, I sort of understand why Farrell's mixing it up, and I think it's the right thing to do. But I do have the similar concern about if you had to play Aki in the 13 channel against the Aussies, and you might find him just a little bit lacking on that outside break. Once those Aussie back three get the ball, you know, is he going to have the pace to do it? Hugh Jones, you know, definitely can. And I thought he looked, you know, quite good yesterday. Has he got enough magic sauce to be able to bring it for the day? So my sense would be they might end up with the Irish centres.
Yeah, I think I think so too, or the Scottish ones. But I think what they've done so far is they've given the whole kind of dynamic a sort of robustness. Because imagine if you get into one of the tests and one of those centres gets injured, and then they've never actually played together before. By getting them pairing and mixing around during these games, at least they've had some experience of playing with each other. So if they have to do it come the test series, then they'll be a little bit further along the line. I strongly believe that's a big factor in the selection so far. Yeah,
and we all know what happens. Like, you think it's going to be that, and then a week before, Aki gets injured, and then bang, now you've got to go with something else. So I think you're right, Tim. I think, you know, the combinations are vital to build a bit of trust and understanding amongst each other, even if probably when it comes down to it, he might go for the Irish centres.
Yeah. Okay. While we're talking about combinations, let's talk about something that's a little bit more up our street, shall we say, and that is the front row options, because it's been quite an interesting one, I think, so far. The front rowers have gone on this tour because at times, I think most of them have had good periods, and most of them have had little periods where they've been either the referee's gone against them or they've made a few errors. So I think it's very touch and go for a lot of these front row options.
Yeah. Okay. So go on then, Timmy. What's your front three at the moment if you're picking the Lions test team?
For the test team right now to start, and I did a separate video as well about the tight head, so I'll link that above your head as well for people to go and look at that one for the reasons why I would go with Finlay Bealham to start at tight head with Dan Sheehan and Ellis Genge. Those would be my pick to start the first test.
I was not sure about tight head, but I picked Sheehan and Genge. So I was interested to see what you said. Why did you pick Bealham?
It's a lot to do with his unbelievable technical brilliance and the height that he scrummages at. So he's much sort of shorter than the other tight heads, and therefore scrummages much lower. And he's going to probably be up against Angus Bell, who's 6'4" or 6'5", and really struggles getting down low. So I think if Bealham can do a job in the first half first 45 minutes, get Bell conceding penalties. Because let's not forget, Angus Bell is a threat but for the Wallabies. His ball carrying is amazing. And if the Lions can get him off the pitch sooner rather than later, then I think that's a real good job for Beelum to do. And then Stewart or Furlong, Stewart, I would say, is probably next in line at the moment to come on and use that dynamic ball carrying and power later in the game, is the way I see it.
Because Furlong, people have been saying not really at his best at the moment. It feels like he's kind of, he's not quite carrying the ball as much. He's not having as much impact on the game. Obviously, Stewart had a great Six Nations. His footwork, his mobility was good, but he was getting caught yesterday. 3 penalties yesterday against him. So, yeah, it's an interesting one, that. But I agree. I think Genge has had a great start, and he feels like he's really coming on as a Lion. He's got a bit of like personality on the tour. I think people have. It's been interesting seeing a couple of the other nations players saying he thought he was a bit of a bellend, but actually he's quite a nice bloke, actually. So that's always nice. And I think Sheehan looks a little more dynamic. Kevin Dickey's playing all right. Keller's doing all right. I wasn't that impressed with him yesterday. So I think that, I think that's a pretty good selection. But as you said, I think that tight head slot's probably the one that's the most up for grabs in a way right now. But let's see what happens in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the coaches might have a different idea in terms of what they want to achieve from each tight head in each situation. They might want to attack it in a different way, and there's loads of great ways, loads of different ways of going about this. That's just just my thoughts on what I would do in that situation. In terms of the hookers, I think Kelleher's playing. It feels like he's playing within himself a little bit at the moment. It feels like he hasn't quite found his groove in this Lions team, because I rate him. I think he's a really good sort of nuts and bolts player, and he does some good dynamic work around the field as well. But he's one of the few players I think who's just not quite found his spot yet.
Yeah, and I think whereas I think Sheehan's bought into and thrives in this type of a game plan. I think he really, you could see that he wants to play an expansive game. He wants to have his hands on the ball. He wants to make things happen, and it's perhaps a bit more natural for him at the moment. And County, I think again is a nugget player, but I could imagine him being on the bench for Sheehan to start, to bring tackling and physicality to that second, to the finishing, in a way that maybe Keller might not. But you never know. Let's see what happens in the next couple of games. It's one of those ones where suddenly someone can spark again. The other area, of course, is the back row, and the back row I think is really interesting. That game yesterday, I was struck by, obviously, Jack Morgan playing very well, Cone playing pretty well, and then Curry was okay. He wasn't brilliant. I don't know. It felt a bit like he was a little bit of he was a bit part player yesterday. And I don't know whether you felt the same.
Well, I would actually be a little more negative than that about him. I can't remember him playing a worse game, I don't think. Like there was lots of effort, there was lots of bustle, there was lots of intent, but he made so many errors, both sides of the ball, like some handling errors, and I think he dropped off at least 3 tackles, like tackles that really should have stuck when he sort of jumped out the line as well. So I was very disappointed for him, because I'm a huge fan of his as a player, the way he goes about his business, the way he is as a human as well. So I'm sure he'll be gutted that, that was a big game in terms of putting down a stamp for test selection in, as you've rightly mentioned, obviously a very, very competitive area.
Yeah. So, they were talking about balance in the background. Conan gives them that sort of, without Falatau, he's a little bit of, or Vunipola in the past, that kind of, I'm just going to be a big bloke and run into people and everyone else can run around. So I think that balance is important, that if Morgan's in there and if the next one up is Earl or if it's Curry, that's quite a good balance. And I think, again, back to the point about wanting to be able to physically dominate in the 5 to 10 yards either side of a ruck, Conan can do that. He can be the guy that will take 2-3 people to bring him down and have the extra millisecond on his feet to be able to get people behind him and across the ball. And of course, I thought his hands yesterday for the try for Van der Merwe were excellent. And I think that's another part of his game that Farrell will be really happy with, that he's able to not only to do the hard yards, but link play really well as well.
Yeah, they were beautiful hands for that try. And there was also, towards the end of the game, a line out thrown over the top to him, which he had to sort of run on.
Picked up. Yeah,
sort of by his knees. That is one of the hardest skills to catch a ball like that. And he made it look effortless, to be honest. I was really impressed with Conan yesterday. Morgan, obviously, as well. But don't forget, Josh van der Fleer in the previous game was also really outstanding in the number 7 jersey. So I still think the number 7 jersey is absolutely up for grabs. And in terms of the back row balance, I think we might end up with 2 big bodies in the back row. I think they may end up with a big 6 as well as a big 8. Time will tell, obviously. I mean, it looks like with this expansive game plan at the moment that having like 2 7s on the pitch to cover the ground as much as possible is currently the right choice. But as we discussed earlier, if things are going to get tighter and closer coming into this series, having another big body might be the right answer.
And do you consider Morgan a big body?
No. I'm talking Ty Byrne. I'm talking Ollie Chesham at 6 for that kind of scenario.
Chesham played well yesterday, I thought. Yeah, another good
game.
He
did okay. Yeah, I think there's more to come from him for sure.
Yeah, and then the second row, Itoje and McCarthy potentially. I was really impressed with McCarthy. He looks like such a tinker, but he's an absolute he's got a brilliant, just you want him on your team kind of look. He's enforcer meets. I mean, he's got enough skills. He's got a physicality. He's got an engine on him. Yeah, I was really impressed with him.
Yeah,
and he looks bigger. He looks a lot bigger now. In the last couple of years, he's put on a lot of beef. So he can really throw his weight around in a good way.
Yeah, discipline's always been his slight Achilles heel, and the Wallabies will know that. So he's got to maintain that discipline throughout this tour and the Test series if he's going to play a meaningful part in it. Because I think if he sort of has a discipline error, a bad one, I think that could really be a massive negative point on his selection potential.
Yeah. So then you could have Itoje, McCarthy, and a back row of Chesham or Byrne, Conan, and Van der Fleer or Morgan. Yeah, some big lumps there. And I can see why as well. And then the ability to bring some speed off the bench with Earl or people like that. Yeah. No, I can see that happening. Again, I think this ability to just physically squeeze the Wallabies into submission, and then when they're exhausted, the space will come, and then you think the tries will come from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's. This is a tricky one because I don't like talking about negative things really, but we're going to do it. Risers and fallers, Taff. Who has risen from their sort of position at the start of the tour and who's fallen? Let's start with the negative ones. Who do you think's had a sort of is less chance of a Test start now than they did at the start of the tour?
Well, I think as you said, Curry perhaps yesterday not quite as strong. I think this is going to be tough, but I think Van der Merwe, he's a big old boy, but some of his skill set is just not there. It's at the same level. There's a couple of moments yesterday where you're like, I think he should have been closer to that kick through. He should have had more about him to go and just make a hit or something. And I
agree. I did feel for him in that scenario because in the modern game, like if he gets that wrong, he could get sent off.
Yeah, I agree.
He's in there. Like we've seen that recently. So I agree, but I also could see it potentially from his position there as well.
Yeah. So maybe he's just kind of, and then that kick over the top, he sort of handles it, but he gets away and everything. So maybe him. Other players, I think that those are the two. As he said, Ted Furlong hasn't really shone yet. So maybe he's probably feeling like there's a bit to go with him. But otherwise, I think there's a lot of players have done very well. Anyone from you, Timmy, that you're kind of?
Well, those were actually the two that were in my mind as well, Curry and Van der Merwe. Yeah, So, but let's avoid that. Let's go on to the positive stuff. Who do you think has come through and has got a test chance that maybe they didn't think they had at the start of the tour?
I think Tommy Freeman. I mean, he's probably been there or thereabouts, but I think I was impressed with him again yesterday. You know, his physicality kind of belies his frame sometimes, and I was impressed with his finishing yesterday when he had to spin out of a tackle and get the ball down. Morgan, I think again, you know, we mentioned him just now, but I think he's really showing that he belongs on this, and I think Genge as well. You know, are the ones that have really impressed in terms of kind of bolters or anything like that. I have to say, I thought Gibson Park was excellent yesterday, but I was also impressed with Mitchell. What I thought was good is when he came on, and Finn Smith, the pace was straight there, and the pass was zippy, and Finn Smith's passing was zippy, and I thought that was really good. That showed, you know, if you need people to come on and move it up a gear, that was really, really impressive. So again, I think the test series will be, you know, is about the starters, but it's also about the finishers and the people who are going to be on the pitch at the end of the game. You know, Finn Russell's had already been shown to have a lot of class about him, but I think Farrell will be happy that he can bring halfbacks on that immediately put some pace into the game, and I think that will be good.
Completely. And I don't know what it is about Finn Smith, but he did it with England, and he seems to be able to do it with the Lions as well. I don't think the Lions looked messy before he came on, but I thought they just looked a lot more cohesive when Finn Smith was on the pitch. I think there's something about the way he runs and the timing of his passing or something like that. I just think he's easy for his own teammates to read and understand what he's looking for. I think players find it easy to play with him.
Yeah, and I've noticed a little bit. So this might be a bit of a, I don't know, it's just so nice, but Finn Russell patrols behind the ruck. He kind of sometimes he'll even just be like, oh, you guys play for a bit. Oh, don't want it yet. You know, and it's sort of, he just kind of waits and he goes, now I want it. Whereas Finn Smith wants to control a game. He wants to control a game even if the forwards are there. He's like, this is what's going to happen now. I think it's probably part of his coaching, you know, and he's played within systems and he's been expected to lead. Whereas I think Russell wants to be the guy, but he wants to be the guy when he wants to be the guy. And that's great because the team want him to do it. But I noticed that he watches the game happen around him, which I think is such a talent. And then he'll go, right, I think, yeah, now we'll go, or now we'll do it, or whatever. And that's why I think sometimes Finn Smith can look like the game is happening for him and he's controlling it. And of course, if it's not going for him, then things can fall away a bit. And Northampton obviously against Leinster in the semi-final, but then perhaps not so much in the final. You know, when he doesn't have the same level of control, whether the forwards have given him that platform or not, he can perhaps look less effective. Whereas even if you're not doing so well, like Scotland often might not have so much ball, Russell will find a moment to go, now we go, and make something happen. So I think in that sense, I agree with you, you know, and also Russell Smith's passing is excellent. You know, he made a great try for Gary Ringrose yesterday, just a brilliant left hand double miss, which I thought was just excellent skills. And so I think, again, to have someone who can do that, come on and perform at that high level, and not be afraid to throw that pass, again, is really encouraging.
Completely. Okay, let's bring the on-field stuff to a close here. Let's talk about off-field things. Is there anything Lionsy, anything tour related that you've seen maybe in the behind-the-scenes stuff that's caught your eye?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say is obviously the social media stuff and everything is fantastic. It's weird. It feels a little bit. This is going to sound weird. I love the Lions when you find out how it was afterwards. So does it feel weird to kind of see the behind the scenes during it? Like, and okay, it's nice. I think it's been great. Like, I always think Bundy Aki comes across as a really great tourist. Everyone loves him. He's always seems to be, everyone wants, him around. As I said, Genge looks like he's won over a lot of people and is becoming a really good Lions legend. But it does feel sometimes odd to kind of see a lot of that, here they are at training where we're used to the videos coming out afterwards, the Living with Lions and stuff. It's like, oh, this was how it was. Yeah. So that's been a little bit of a sort of an interesting thing to kind of go, well, we can watch them as they tour. So there's no secrecy now. There's no magic behind the curtain about how this went. You know, you see Farrell's pre-match speech to them, and I think the one thing that maybe happens then is, you know, you're being filmed. So do you play up to the cameras a little bit? Does some of it become a little bit, you know, performative?
Yeah, well, you shouldn't do that in front of Ellis Genge, because he'll call you out on it, as he did to Finlay Bealham during on this week,
Exactly.
which just brilliant little moment. That was my favourite moment, by the way, from the behind the scenes stuff.
My other thing I've enjoyed is I really enjoyed the commentary yesterday on Sky, which was O'Gara, Warburton, and Bigger. And I thought they were, and obviously Miles Harrison loves having them, because they keep talking about their hotels and where they're all staying and all the stuff they're doing together, which seems nice. But having the three of them comment and chat about the game, it feels like a watch along, a good watch along with some really insightful players. And, you know, and O'Gara can't help himself sometimes, just shouting things like "Go, lad!" or "You got to tackle him," you know, like he's in the coach's box. But I feel that's been a really nice way to enjoy the games, with some smart insights and different perspectives.
Yeah, actually, my view's slightly different. I felt they're all brilliant. I thought they're all fantastic, but I felt like it was one too many voices for me. I felt like they were not competing, but at times you need a little bit of space. You need to let it breathe. Yeah. And I think having three pundits for me was one too many. But I agree, they were all individually brilliant. And my favourite moment of that was when Ronan O'Gara started speaking in French halfway through at one point.
Yes. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Yeah, no, they're very insightful, and Warburton obviously is very good. But I know what you mean about maybe an extra voice. But I know I found it okay this time. But I'll be aware of it in the next games. But they've got good insight into what's going to happen on that pitch, what it feels like to be a 10 for Lions, and talking to the referee and all that sort of thing. So no, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, happy days. Okay, mate, as we're bringing this to a close, any kind of final thoughts, anything that you want to sort of finish up this episode by talking about?
Well, I think, they've announced the team for the next game. So Keenan's going to be playing at 15. That's good for him. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. I think, again, it's a good opportunity for a few run-outs. I think Cummings is playing in the second row. I saw, Ryan played his first game. So now everyone's kind of got some soil on their hands. I think that's going to be good. I think, again, it'll be interesting to see the game plan, back to what we talked about at the beginning. Will they continue to kind of look to go wide quite early, put pressure on the defense, or will they start to do a little bit more physical dominating up front? I'm really impressed with the lines of running from the forwards off the ruck. I think some of that's been fantastic. And I think to be able to get that type of cohesion and energy and discipline mindset this quickly is a testament to the coaches and the players' mindset. And just really looking forward to the next game now.
Yeah, they come thick and fast, but they can't come soon enough at the same time. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, people, that is what we think. We've gone through quite a lot of stuff there, actually. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on literally anything that we've spoken about, or anything else Lions related, obviously. We'll have that in the comments down below, and we'll join you there for a friendly conversation. If you could give this video a thumbs up while you're down there, it helps other great rugby fans like you find it. And it just leaves me to say, Taff, thanks so much again today for your wonderful insight.
One more thing. I think the Lions shirts are too red. They're not the right red.
They're a different red, that's for sure.
I prefer the 2001 red. That's a little bit more reddy.
Scarlety. This one's
a bit more scarlet. Word, yeah. I find this darker red a bit too dark. I don't know how you feel about that, Tim.
Oh, that's challenging, because we disagree on that. It's not the same red that they've used many times before, but I really love the look of this Lions kit. I think it looks amazing.
Well, that's okay. That's
slight change in red doesn't bother me. In fact, okay. I like it.
All right, I'll let you have that.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I'm right. Like, it's all your personal opinion. Oh, well, let us know what you think about that in the comments down below as well. Do you like the red or not? Let's hear about that. And while you're down there, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next, and don't forget to get out and play.